Hello everyone and welcome to a new little video series that we're going to start. We're going to call it Good or Bad. Simply going to be titled that, Good or Bad. So we're going to cover a lot of different topics, a lot of different gaming related topics, but we are going to start, well, we technically did start with the Steam's $5 minimum spend policy. Was it good? Was it bad? We listed some good points, listed some bad points. And we're going to discuss that. So that's going to be the template for this. And this week we are going to talk about SWTOR's 12 times XP. It's been a subject of debate among the community about whether it's a good thing for the game or about whether it's a bad thing for the game. So we're going to discuss the good points and the bad points. We'll start off with the good points, and we'll talk about some of the negative sides to 12 times XP. You don't want to make it all negative or all positive. We're going to talk about both. The idea is, can we get balance, really? Is it going to be good for the game? Is it going to be bad for the game in the long term? Because 12 times XP is with us. It's with us until the fall. I guess it's until episode 7 comes out, I would imagine. Because a lot of people saying that the next expansion is going to come out around then. 4.0 is going to come out. So maybe it will, maybe it won't until they confirm it. Again, you never believe rumors, really. You know, it's all rumors until it gets confirmed. So you never want to believe any rumors at the moment. So we'll talk about 12 times XP. And we'll start off with some of the positive aspects of this. And I guess probably the best thing about it is if you're leveling alts. That's going to be the biggest positive. You know, it's going to make it easier to level your alts, really. That's essentially what it is. That's essentially, I think why most people wanted it is because grinding through all those quests on your alts, I mean, that's the biggest thing it does, is it eliminates the grind, is what it does. It eliminates your need to do side quests. You need to do, you know, because the side quests are all the same, essentially, on each planet. You've got the main planetary story quest as well. And, you know, it's just an elimination of that grind. So if you're on your 7th character or your 8th character, then you can just go through it fast and efficiently, which is, you know, it's a good thing, because you don't want to be grinding on every single alt. That's what makes it, gets a bit boring, to be honest, doing it with alts. Another good thing about it is it's good if you like the story quests. Like, say you like the agent quest, say you've got a sniper, and you really like the agent quest, and you thought, I want to do that agent quest again, I want to do the agent story again, and then, you know, you can just do that, because you can just level purely through the story quest, so you can go and relive the old story content that you liked, you know, because some people like the agent story. It's one of the best in the game. I happen to agree, I think it's pretty good. But say you just want to relive it, you just want to go through it again, and you just want to see how the different choices affect the story. See, if you did a dark-sided agent, maybe you'll do a light-sided agent. You know, it's good for that kind of thing. Again, it just means you don't have to go and grind through a lot of content that you don't want to do. You just want to see the story. Fine, okay, it's fine. You know, it'll get you through the story. Another good positive about it is if you're just leveling the mirror class, like say you leveled a scoundrel, you know how to play a scoundrel, and you want to try an operative on the Empire, which is the exact same class, same abilities, well, they're different names, but they do the same thing. Say you just want to check out the mirror class on the other faction, then you can. You know, it again just makes it easier, because you know how to play a scoundrel, all the abilities are the same. And, you know, you want to try an operative, the way you go, you're off and you're getting there. You can also do it with the off class as well, the other class, we'll call it as well. We'll call it the off class, the other advanced class. Let's say, again, you've got the operative and you want to try a sniper. You just want to try it out. Then, again, it's another good thing, because you can just get to a decent level fairly quickly with this story, and you can check out the class and see what it's all about as well, because 60 levels just to find out that you don't really like the class, I mean, it's a long grind. It's going to take you less time. You should put out 12 times XP only goes to level 55, however leveling from 55 to 60 doesn't take it long at all, so you can at least hit a very, you know, you'll hit usually about level 30 the classes start to take shape. really, in terms of their rotations and things like that. And you know, you get some of your crucial abilities. Some are saved for later on, but you should have an idea how the class plays by about between 30 and 40 roughly. You should at least have an idea whether you want to play it. So it's good for those people who want to try out the class. You know, they just want to try out, you know, the other class. They're tired of playing an operative, and they want to check out a sniper. They want to be a ranged class. So it's good for those people. You know, it's really good for those people. It does take away the grind, as we said. That's the biggest thing. It takes away a lot of the things. Like, the side quests are very, very repetitive. They're the same on every character. The planetary quests are the same on every character. PvP is, you know, the same. The flashpoints are the same. Broadly, there's some differences. You get Foundry and Boarding Party for the Empire, and you get Toral 5 and Maelstrom Prison on the Republic, so you might maybe want to check out those things. But ultimately, most of the leveling is just the same. It's just a different story quest. And if you've already done the story quest with the other class, then you can just go, and it's the line of least resistance for leveling that you follow. If you want to follow that and you want to get to end game quickly, then yeah, it's a good thing. Right, so we covered the good things. We're going to cover some of the negatives, some of the downsides to 12 times XP. And I guess one of the biggest downsides is that you never really learn truly how to play your class, or ultimately play your role very well. Because again, leveling through the story quests, if we looked at the leveling in vanilla when you leveled your first character, there were certain bosses that you hit back when this was a subscription game. You know, there were certain bosses that you hit at a certain level which were designed to test your class knowledge. Again, we've listed examples in the past. Jedi Knight had a boss at the end of Coruscant, which you had to use a defensive cooldown for. If you didn't use a defensive cooldown, the likelihood is you would die. It was a level 16 boss. Now, most players were around level 16. I think you got your defensive cooldown at 15 back then. So if you were 15, 16, nowadays, if you're 12 times XP, time you get there, and again with XP boosters and such, you're level 20, 21. Fighting a level 16 boss. So the skill check, if it were, the do you know how to play a class check, is irrelevant, because the boss isn't going to cause you enough damage. You're going to kill it long before it hits that ability. There was another one at level, I think it was level 22, 23, it was after Nar Shaddaa. It was between Nar Shaddaa and Tatooine, where you had to interrupt, because you got your interrupt about, I don't know, level 22 or something like that, but it was a boss that you did have to do an interrupt on, and it was a big knockback that he did, and he would knock you down and he would hit you really hard, but if you interrupted it, you know, he didn't do the big knockback and you weren't stunned and vulnerable to this big attack. You could do your knockback, pop your defensive cooldown, and keep DPSing him. Of course, again, you hit that boss, level 25, 26, it's not going to matter. It's not going to do enough damage to you. Also, the 3.0, the mobs are designed to be killed a lot easier, which again is a little bit of a downside. It's a little bit of just, you know, mobs just fall over. Even as a tank, I'm leveling an assassin tank and finding mobs are just dying so quickly, which again, as a tank or healer, you kind of want that. But again, you're trying to learn your rotation, trying to learn your class's utilities. If you're not utilizing, for lack of a better word, all of those abilities, then, you know, you're gonna hit end game where you kind of have to, you know, you have to use defensive cooldowns on certain fights at end game, and you have to use interrupts. I mean, again, we look at fights, Oricon, which is irrelevant right now. Oricon, really, it's just a daily hub right now, but you don't have to do it. I mean, before, you would, at level 55, you kind of, if you wanted the, you know, to go through Dread Fortress and Dread Palace, you didn't have to do it to go through Dread Fortress and Dread Palace, but you got a lot more commendations for going through it. You got the one-time quest, you also got your Tauntaun mount as well for going through that quest line. So again, it did have bosses that were pretty hard, and a lot of people struggled with them, and that was without 12 times XP. Well, 12 times XP came in at the end, but it was mostly without 12 times XP, and people were struggling, and it was just a case of interrupt, stun, and then the last one you had to interrupt, you had to stun him, and you had to use a defensive cooldown at one point. You know, it was kind of basic stuff, those solo bosses, but people struggled with them. People were struggling. You know, I made a video on it, and it's got like, I think it's the most viewed video is my Bothrian Beast kill video. I think it had like, I don't know, 10, it had 10k the last time I checked it, 10k views the last time I checked it. So it just shows you how much trouble people had with that boss, you know, while, you know, at endgame. So not the best, you would say. It's not really the best idea. The other big thing is, of course, you don't learn how to play your class in a group environment. You see this a lot in flashpoints and hard mode flashpoints, like DPS that think they're tanks and just pull ahead of the tank. You know, tanks that queue as a tank, they don't know what a tank is. They're not in tank. Don't have the tank discipline. They don't have tank gear. They don't have the tank stance, and they just don't know what they're doing. You see this quite often. You know, it's not hugely often that you see it. I've very rarely seen a healer that doesn't queue as a healer, but you see it a lot with tanks. You just wonder, why are you queuing as a tank? Just to get a quicker queue. Because at some point at endgame, you're going to have to really do multiplayer content at some point. You know, if you want decent gear, if you want to progress into operations, you have to go through some multiplayer content. You can get from 1 to 55 without ever touching any multiplayer content now. And you can get 55 to 60 without touching it either, because you've got solo mode flashpoints, which are fair enough. I don't mind them, but it's just it's a different mentality and a different attitude. You have to play with a different kind of style. Again, you have to be aware of things like aggro. You have to be aware of things on the ground. You know, don't stand in things. You have to be aware of like kill order is a big thing that you see as well. You see a lot of people make those mistakes, and 12 times XP doesn't help, because if you look at the lower level flashpoints, they're basically tutorials for these things. You know, they kind of ease you into it. You know, flashpoints, you've got Essilus and Black Talon, which is kind of just easing you into it. And then you've got Hammer Station, which kind of ups the ante a little bit. Can be a bit tough, Hammer Station, as the first real flashpoint that you hit in the game at level 15, sort of 15 to 22 or something like that it is. Then you've got Athos, which is a little bit of a test for a healer, especially on the last boss as well, and a test for the DPS. The second boss is all about kill order. It's also a test for the tank and positioning the boss correctly so you don't get knocked around too much. But again, it's these little things, they're little tutorials that just teach you how to do it, and if you're skipping them, you're missing out on that, and you're hitting endgame. And the way endgame flashpoints, the way the hard modes are designed, is they assume that you've gone through all of those little, you know, all of those low level flashpoints, and that you know how to play in that environment, because it is very difficult. Because it's easy, you see DPS, you know, just put their head down and, you know, focus on the boss, and while the healer gets eaten by the ads. You see healers who just never cleanse. You see tanks that kind of struggle. You see the tank trying to kill the ads while the boss is running around. You see a lot of these things in groups, in Group Finder, and, you know, 12 times XP kind of makes it worse. Some people say it does make it worse. That is one of the major points. And the other point, of course, which leads into this point, is there's a lot of very good content while leveling that's just being neglected right now. Heroic quests, for example, nobody really does them anymore. You always see people looking for them, but they always seem to struggle to find groups, because is there any real reason to do heroic quests now? Especially with the commendation boost in 12 times XP, you're getting 12 basic comms per quest, and they've reduced the cost of armorings from 7 armorings, hilts and barrels have gone from 7 basic comms to 2 basic comms now. So is it any wonder that we're seeing these drops, you know, in the uptake of those quests? The flashpoint queues are pretty long right now, because again, nobody's doing that. And those flashpoints, leveling flashpoints, they're really good content. They really are interesting. You know, some of them are really good. The stories are really good in them, like Boarding Party Foundry, really good one on the Empire. The Republic equivalent is, what's it called, Tural 5 and Maelstrom Prison. They're good story quests. You know, there's ones like Colicoid War Game. That is an excellent flashpoint, very puzzle based, very interesting. There's some cool flashpoints out there while leveling that, you know, that people are going to miss out on. They're just going to miss that content, you know, and do we really want to see that? Because it is good, it's really good stuff. There's some really good flashpoints while leveling. You should check them out at least once while leveling. At least queue for Group Finder, that would be my advice, because you're missing out. I think you're missing out on a lot of these cool little stories, and they're usually self-contained little stories, or you get the ones that chain into other ones, like, you know, the Malgus the Betrayer storyline, which is quite a cool storyline. You still get 12 times XP for that on Ilum as well. You can do that, but most people just go to Makeb because, again, you follow the line of least resistance. Makeb, you get bolstered to level 55, whereas, you know, Malgus the Betrayer ends in 2 flashpoints, and 2 very good flashpoints as well. You know, Battle of Ilum and False Emperor, they're really good flashpoints. I like those flashpoints. Again, good story. The story arc that goes through Ilum is quite nice, but most people again tend to miss out on it. You know, it's a really good story arc, Ilum. You should check it out. You can do it when you're 60 as well. You can solo the whole thing as well. You can also get HK51 solo at level 60 as well. But again, the final point that we're going to make that's bad is it leads to the content being consumed and burned through too quickly, and this results in burnout. You get burned out from the game as a result of, again, you get all the advanced classes to 60, you get bored of the content at 60, because there is a decent amount of content at 60. There's a decent amount of content. People say there's not a lot of content at 60. I personally believe that the level 60 content, we're not lacking in quantity of content. In quality of content, you could argue is where we're lacking. You know, the current tier is not the best tier. It's one of the worst tiers, I think. Temple of Sacrifice and Ravagers, I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest with you. Not a huge fan of the current raids. The current flashpoints are the worst as well in the game right now. I think they're, quite frankly, they are really annoying. There's none that I like, I have to say. There's none that I really like. I'm sick of Blood Hunt. Sick of it. Level through it with 16 characters. Hate it. I don't care what difficulty it's in. I don't care if it's solo, tactical, or hard mode. I just hate that flashpoint now. I just don't want to do it. It's one of those things. You have to do it if you're leveling alts. I think that's a mistake as well, you know, for leveling, to force you to do the flashpoints, and then when you get to 60, oh, I gotta do a hard mode version of this. It just puts you off doing that. You go through all of the level 60 flashpoints, all of the current level 60 hard modes. You have to go through them all, leveling from 55 to 60 if you're doing the story quest, or if you want the benefits of the story quest. Because again, if you want to go to Ziost and things like that, and do the story on Ziost, you have to run through the story quest. Well, you don't have to do Forged Alliances, but it is in your benefit to do it if you hit 55, because you get a full set of 162 gear for free, essentially. Doesn't matter what your gear level is when you go into it, because you get bolstered and you get the God Mode droid. So, you know, it's in your interest to do Forged Alliances, do the Shadow of Revan Prelude. If you're just a fresh 55, if you just freshly ding 55, it's definitely worth it, because it'll gear you up for Rishi, and, you know, Rishi should gear you up for Yavin and Ziost should gear you up for Endgame, essentially. It's much better gear from Ziost, the 190, than the 186, or even the Massassi Mark 1 Commendation gear at 192. The 190 gear is way better than that, I tend to find. So, you know, it's quite easy to level in gear, at least, but what we're seeing right now is tend to be a lack of engagement in group content at endgame. We're seeing that, you know, groups struggle to down flashpoints. They still struggle. I mean, I don't think they're very hard, to be honest. Some people say that they are still pretty difficult. Some people still don't like Depths of Manan for some reason. I think it's one of the easiest. I'm a healer, and I think it's easy. I mean, there's some quite... The last boss can be a bit tough for the healer. Some DPS just don't like tanking, I guess. You know, you always say that, right? Which one of you is going to end up tanking? Oh, I don't want to tank. Or they get aggro and just sort of run in a circle and don't take him into the fire. That's funny, that boss. You need to do that final boss in Depths of Manan. But then you should have went through the solo version at least, and you should realise taking him into the fire is the way to do it. I mean, if you look at the amount of damage that the fire does versus the amount of AoE healing that I can do on most of my healers, it's nothing. Just stand in the fire. It's one of those things that goes against your MMO sensibilities, which is quite funny. Just get into the fire, don't get out of the fire, get into the fire. Anyway, we went off topic a little bit, but that is the gist of it. So what do you think? Do you think 12 times XP, is it good? Is it bad for the game? Or, you know, should it be in the game? Because it was popular. It's only backed by popular demand. A lot of people don't like the way it's been implemented. Some people say that it should have been an opt-in instead of an opt-out, because there is, of course, an opt-out option, which is available. It's the, I can't remember what it's called, but it's available for 0 credits. Maybe they should have made it an opt-in. Some people say it should have requirements attached to it as well, like Legacy Level 50 as well. So let me know what you think in the comments. So anyway, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon, and goodbye.